Um, yeah. So a website generally is divided into two parts: the front end of the website and the back end of the website. The front end of the website is something which you usually see. So whatever you're seeing right now, this is the front end of the website. So I'm using Google Slides right now. So everything, right from the Google Slides home logo, the title, the buttons, everything that comes under front end. And you can make front end using different tools. There are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and you can also use different frameworks. I'll be explaining these in a little more detail in a while. The second part of web development is backend web development. In backend web development, you think of all the logics, all the functions which happen, and you take care of all those kind of activities. So all the working behind the scenes happens in the backend, and you cannot see this. For example, if I click on comments, and I want to share some comments to with you guys. So it should go from my front end to someone else's front end. This networking happens with the backend. So the backend sends it to the other person's front end. So backend can be written in multiple frameworks. Django and Flask are really good frameworks for backend web development. They usually use the Python language. Deno and Node.js are upcoming languages written with JavaScript. Golang is another very fast backend development framework made with Golang. It is a very new concept. It is just a bit older than Deno. So you cannot necessarily choose which framework is best either for front end or back end, but you really just choose the framework you're most comfortable with while working. Now, a bit more into front end basics. So front end is made up of three different kinds of files: HTML files, CSS files, and JavaScript or jQuery. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript make your whole front end of the website. You can use different plugins or frameworks, but all of them are made using these three. HTML basically makes the body of your website. And as you can see, this is just a normal stick figure, which does not really look appealing, but it is what it is. It shows that this is a stick figure. Now you can style the stick figure using CSS. As you can see, we have added colors to the stick figure, and now these stick figures actually look a bit more presentable and good. So HTML was used to make the body, even though unappealing, it gives you what you want. CSS helps you style that, and JavaScript helps you make it more functional. Suppose you want to make it dynamic, you want to change different things, you want something to move, you can use JavaScript. For example, I make a stick figure and I want it to move. You can use CSS animations as well, but JavaScript animations are much more versatile, and you can actually make the stick figure move in itself using JavaScript. So HTML, again, I'm repeating this so many times because this is a very basic thing. You need to know the difference between it. So later you can accordingly learn what has to be done. HTML is the body, CSS is to style, JavaScript adds functionality. So moving forward, we use different frameworks to make these easier. But first, I'll get started. Since we're going to be deploying this application, I request all of you to make a GitHub account. Uh, Once you make a GitHub account, Trains has already held a webinar on front end on GitHub. So using this, you can actually you can watch the GitHub webinar, or you can join the courses by Trains and learn how to use GitHub. So because GitHub is very important when you want to deploy your application. For now, I'm making a new repository, assuming you already know GitHub, but I'll still explain a bit. I just logged on to GitHub and I just named the repository Strange Learning. and I'm going to enter a description about the repository. Repository is basically a folder of all your code. So repository to have all front end code. And I'm going to make this a public repository, initialize it with the README, and that's it. I'm just going to create the repository. So GitHub creates a folder within its own website for me where I can push all my code. Later, this code can be used to host my website. So I'll be pushing my website's code over here. So now I go here, I click on this copy button and I go to my terminal. I'm going to open terminal now. Yep. So I'm going to increase the font size so you can see it clearly. I'm going to do git. I'll first move on to my desktop. Git clone and the repository link. So now it has cloned my repository. It's always good when you're working on a new project that you make a GitHub repository, you clone it, you work inside that repository and then push it. So there are no chances of losing code. You can work with other people and there are no problems you face while working. You can go back if you did something wrong as well. So now you can see that a trains learning folder has been created onto my desktop. Now I'll just open that onto my code editor. I use VS Code for my coding because of various plugins it has and how easy it is to use. So I'm opening that folder I just created. So right now that folder is empty. It just has a README which I initiated on Google on GitHub. So I'm going to create my first file and start an hands-on session. If you guys have any doubts, you can keep asking them in the comments. I'll reply to them. So I created a file called index.html. So basically, VS Code gives you different icons for different kind of files you have. HTML usually has this. Okay, so HTML is going to be the body and it is going to have what I have on the website. Okay, so I'm going to start with doc type. So doc type basically tells that you're going to use the latest version of HTML on your website for the code. So HTML is the latest version and you define it using doc type. Before it used to be XML and other stuff, which used to be really long stuff. It used to be like XML equal to version number, etc., and that used to be about this long. And right now we just need to type HTML. So the editor has made it really easy, and HTML is also advancing. HTML5 has made it really simple to write websites. Once you do that, you need to tag called HTML. All your code goes inside the HTML. So once you get well versed with this, we'll move forward. So first you define that this is going to be an HTML document. Then you open the HTML tag. Then you have a head tag. A head tag will have all your meta tags. You can link all your files over here. You can use Google Analytics. You can do different stuff over here, which is not usually seen on your front end. This is all used to rank on Google. So if you have a good meta tag Google and everything, you will be able to rank up Google very easily. And that is done only in the head tag. So moving forward, we have a body tag after that. Your body tag is what will be displayed onto the front end. So anything you write here will be displayed onto the front end. So I'm writing here. Okay, so now that I have written, I write title over here. The title is basically displayed on top of the page. Like here it's in change content, right? So whatever you type in the title tag will come onto your Google Chrome or browser. So we have to do change Photoshop. I've not done anything now. I've just written a title, which should give a title on the Chrome on top, and I've written change, which should give text on Chrome. So I usually use Chrome. You can use Safari or any browser. To open your file, you just need to go to the folder where you saved it and click on index.html twice. So now you can see that it's opened it. Strange Workshop is the title I had given, and Strange is the text I had given. So right now you have created a very basic HTML page, which is working perfectly. Now I'll give you a small introduction of what different HTML tools are. So just a sec. Okay, so as I said, I use VS Code because of various shortcuts it has. VS Code has this shortcut where if I type exclamation mark and click enter, it uses something called emits. It gives me the base structure for a HTML page by itself by default. I don't need to type everything I just showed you. It automatically gives me doc type HTML, HTML language, head. The meta tags I told you are necessary for search engine optimization, that is to rank up on Google, your title tag, and your body tag. You enter whatever is in the body yourself, but the base structure has been given to you by VS Code itself. All you have to do is type exclamation mark and press enter. That's it. So I'm going to write the title again, front end. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the body tag, and I'm going to use a few things which you may not understand right now, but I'll explain them as soon as I'm done writing them. Hello world class hello world style equal to color red. Okay, so let me just open this real quick. Cool. So I've opened this and Strange Workshop front end. Can you guys see my screen? So I've just zoomed in so it's easy for you guys. I've written Strange Workshop front end on the title and Hello World in red color right now. If you remember previously, Strange was written in black, but now it's become red. So this was possible because of the style attribute. So HTML has different tags, attributes, and elements. So I'll give you an introduction of what each of these is. It's very important to know the difference. So HTML tags are nothing but these. The head is a tag, the body is a tag, a paragraph is a tag, the P stands for paragraph. So anything which opens and closes, like this opens and closes, this opens and closes, everything is a tag. So HTML has a predefined set of tags. There are not too many, so with time you'll get to know them. So tags usually contain different attributes which you can use for styling, adding functionality, and different reasons. So class over here, class equal to style equal to something. So all this class equals to style equal to all these are attributes. Okay. So what are elements? And an element is defined by a start tag, some content, and an end tag. So basically over here, the whole thing, my paragraph, class, style, hello world, paragraph closing, the whole thing together is the HTML element. So a small recap, HTML tags are everything which open and close. You open them in angular brackets, you type something is not a valid tag, that's why it gives me red color. You close it, and then when you want to close the HTML tag, you open it and just add a slash. Just add a slash over here and then you close it. So attributes are class equal to style equal to background, UG color. You can add different attributes, but it's default for not to use UG color or other style, right? I'll come back to that later, which it falls in part of it falls under the topic of CSS. Cool. So now that we're done with this, I'll give you a small example. H1 tag. Wait. Hello. Now I'm going to make 6 different versions of this. Over here I'm going to do H2, then comes H3, then comes H4, then comes H5, then comes H6. Hello. So coming to this, if you see the hello which I wrote with H1, which was first on top and is the biggest. Then H2 is a little smaller, H3 is even smaller, and so on. It keeps reducing with a bigger number. So H1 is the biggest number, biggest hello, and H6 is the smallest hello. And this is a paragraph tag which comes in between around H4. Can you hear me, or is there a live video? Can you guys see my screen? Just drop a message over here if you're facing any problems. Is everyone understanding everything till now? Just send a message over here as well. Great. So Kaushik replied, he is understanding everything. If anyone else is also facing problems or is understanding everything, just drop a message and they can help you out. So coming back, these are different headings. H stands for heading. So heading 1 is the biggest, heading 2 is the smallest, heading is even smaller, and so on. And paragraph tags are general text which you want to display onto the website. Even if you write something directly like this, hello, without any tag, it will still display it. As you can see, it still displays it, but it's very bad for your search engine optimization. Again, website won't be ranked top onto Google because of bad practices. So there's no use making a website which is not shown up on Google. The only reason we even make websites is so that when someone searches us, they can find us onto Google. So always follow these tags, use these tags whenever you want to write something. So these are the different types of heading tags. This is the paragraph tag. Okay, so moving forward, HTML also has something called links. Basically, when you click on something, it should go to another page or another section in your website, right? So what HTML has is something called anchor tags. href equal to something, and it closes again. So when you put something inside the href attribute, it links you to that website. So I'm going to take you to https www.akshatvg.com. That's my website. So okay, you need to add some text inside. Click here. So now you can see that that link has come up here. It's underlined, and when I go over any other text, it gives me a normal cursor. But when I come over here, it gives me a pointer. So this shows that it is clickable. And now let me click on it. You can see it redirected me to my website, and it's going to open my website now. But sometimes you want to open the website on a different page, right? You do not want something to open on the same page. Suppose you have your social media handles, which is displayed on the bottom of your screen. You don't want your main content to go away because of that though. So you open it on a new tab. How do you do that? To your anchor tag, you add another attribute called target equal to underscore blank. So once you do this, you need to refresh a page each time you make a change. Okay, so I'm refreshing it on the go. Now you can see it opened on a new tab, but my old text is still here. It did not go away. It just opened my website on a new tab. So that's what anchor tags do. Anchor tags use href to give the link where you're supposed to be redirected to, and targets can open it either on the next page. You can use self that will open it on the same page, or you can use anything else. So I'm going to leave it at blank. Moving forward. Okay, so now you know how to make a basic simple link. Now I'm going to teach you how to make something like a table. Let's go ahead with tables. So HTML has a table tag. So as you can notice, anything you want, it's pretty simple. Everything is literally like English. You want a table, you type table. Now you go with table. Just a sec. Huh. Now I'm going to use something called a table row and something called table heading. Now I'm going to create another row. I'll be explaining what I'm doing right now. PD, which is table data. Heading data. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out from this a bit. Yes, Kaushik, I'll suggest resources for everything in some time. Cool. So as you can see, this I got the heading and data. Now I'm going to add more headings and more data. Data to heading 2. So it gave me everything on the same line like that as a table next to each other. Now, what if I want my table to have a border? Because right now it's not very evident that this is a table, right? Because it's just displaying data, but it's not giving me the lines which a table usually has. So in such a case, you're going to use something called table style equal to border. As you can see, VS Code is automatically suggesting me stuff I should put up, and it makes my work much easier. You can see that, okay, there's a line over here now. So I'm going to add the same thing for each row. I want a line between each row. I want it between each heading and each table data. So now you can see there are perfect lines, and there are lines between each thing, and this looks like a proper table as well. But it was a very redundant task, as you may have noticed. I had to put the style tag for each and every element. Let me explain it first. So first I started with a table tag. Then I created a table row, which is one row like this. How many ever elements I add over here will keep getting added onto this row only. It won't move to the bottom row. So this had the table heading. TH stands for table heading. So heading and heading 2 were table headings. Then I closed the row because now I want to display data which is on the next row. So I created another row and I created something called table data. So this table data will help me add data to these headings. So the number of table headings should obviously be equal to the number of table datas, otherwise it'll be a very broken table. But I hope now you get the gist of how tables actually work. I added something called style equal to border 1 pixel solid black. So you don't need to be frightened what did I do and everything like that. It's very simple, and this is not really part of HTML. This is something called CSS. As I mentioned in my slide before, HTML will make body. Have to be dots, right? It can be anything. So HTML gives you an option to use different kind of things. Right now, I've started my list with something called UL. UL stands for unordered list, and then I added a heading. Then I added list item. LI stands for list item. I'll just change this so it's easier for you to remember as well. Heading and list item. And this thing is called unordered list. Now, if I don't want dots, I want something else. Say I want a number. You can also change this UL to OL, which stands for ordered list. Unordered list versus ordered list. Unordered list had dots, ordered list have numbers. You can also use A, B, C, D or anything like that. You just need to define it over here. Okay, so that's it about lists. One very important thing is I'll give it with an example. I'll just open my website again. So one of the major use cases of lists is when you make a website and you want to add a nav bar. That is this bar on top which takes you to different places. In such a case, you use a list. This whole thing is a list. It just does not have any dots or anything to separate it, and it's on the same line. So lists are very important, and the concept is pretty simple. Uh, Moving forward. Okay, so I hope all of you understood the concepts of lists. Now we'll go ahead and start with CSS. Okay, so I'm going to uncomment my paragraph so you can have a better idea. Okay, so I wanted to make I have a text right now. Okay, it just says hello world and it's black in color, very normal. I want to add different styles to it. Now I'll show you the power of CSS and how you can use CSS to actually do different stuff and make it beautiful. So right now I'm going to use something called a style tag. Style equal to, now I want to change the color. So I'll just type COL. Please remember you need to type COLOR and not COLOUR. British English and American English, but only COLOR is supported in HTML. So you use color and it going to be distinction. I already read. You can see that VS Code suggests me that it's going to look like this color over here. It's going to look like this color over here. Okay, it's not very visible because I changed it to something darker green. Okay, so whatever color I put over here, it keeps changing. Now, what if I want to underline it? So I need to use something called text decoration. Okay. So I just type text decoration underline. So now that I've written something called text decoration underline, I'm saying that please underline this text. Links are automatically underlined. I'll just uncomment it so you can check it out. I didn't do any extra CSS, but it was already underlined and it made it look clickable as well. But I cannot get by default on text and hence I can't underline. I can't underline. Now I want to explain a very important concept in HTML as CSS. It's called classes and IDs. Class and ID. So I'm going to put the same class name and same ID name. No, wait, I'll make it different so you understand. Class and ID. Okay. I named it class and ID, but you can name it anything you want. It can be Inky Pinky Ponky or anything you can think of. Class names and IDs are decided by us and not by HTML. So you can use whatever you're comfortable with and will remember, but try to make it as readable and understandable as possible, because when Google tries to read your website code, It reads your classes and IDs as well while deciding your ranking on Google. So if it is something very vague, it will not understand it and it'll give a bad score. So if you have, say, this is a Trange workshop website, and I want to make a website for Trange. So I you can name your classes something like Trange uh, underline or train. Let's just do this class underline. Oh wait, class color, ID color. Okay. Right now, it again reverted back to black because classes and IDs don't do anything on their own. They just act as a link between your CSS and HTML or JavaScript. So you can use classes and IDs to link your HTML to your CSS or JavaScript. CSS has three different formats of using it. So you can use a style tag in the head section, or you can use a style attribute inside here, or you can create a new entire file called index.css, and you can see that this has a different icon from that of HTML. Now I'm going to explain the difference between these three. Okay, so first I'm going to use I'm going to use the normal style tag as we had showed you. No, first I'll show you external. So when I create a new file, it's called external CSS. When I create a new file, it's called external CSS. When I add code, CSS code inside my style tag inside the head, it is called internal CSS. And when I use the style attribute, it's called inline. So new file means external, style tag means internal, and style attribute means inline. Okay, so this is a very simple concept. Now I'll show you why there are different kinds of HTML styles, CSS styles. Why not just use style tag all the time? It is always better to use external tags, and to use external tags you definitely need classes or IDs. So right now I've used class color, right? I'm just going to use dot class color, and I'm going to open it like this in curly braces. So what I did right now is I had used a class name, and I'm going to use this class color over here with a dot and open curly braces. Now I can type whatever styles I was typing inside my style attribute here. Suppose I want to give it a blue color. Okay, so one very important thing is when you make a new external file, you're supposed to link it. To link it, you do link href equal to index.css rel equal to style sheet. So over here, if you remember anchor tags href, so I'm linking it to something else. Again, I'm linking my link href. I'm linking my CSS file over here to the external CSS file I had made. And rel equals to style sheet means it is CSS. CSS stands for cascading style sheets. So it says that it's a style sheet. So I'm going to link it this way, link rel, and I've added class color. I've used it over here. I've added a blue color. Let's see if it works now. Yes. So now my text is blue in color. So originally what was black has been made blue using external CSS. Now you may be wondering, why did I add a, why did I, once again, why did I add an ID as well as a class? So IDs have higher priority than classes. That's why it's generally preferred to use classes. Suppose I write something with class and I write something with ID. So ID color. Let's go with blue violet. So it is the same element, that is p class color and ID color with hello world, and class color says blue color, and ID color says blue violet. So if you think logically, HTML should get confused as to which CSS should I use. but HTML gives ID a higher priority and hence will show blue violet. As you can see, it's become blue violet. So why I told you should use classes and not IDs is because classes can be overwritten using IDs, but IDs cannot be overwritten using classes. Suppose you write different codes and very long codes, you use classes, but you do not feel like editing a single feature. You do not feel like creating a new class for a very small feature. You want to use the same feature made with your first class in another paragraph tag, for instance, but you want to make this underlined. So what you'll do is you'll just add ID over here like this and make it underlined. So IDs override classes. It is always preferred to use classes. This is a very important concept that IDs override classes. So I'll remove this in a while just to show you. Okay, I'll actually just remove this again. I'll comment it. As you can see, the commenting for CSS files is very different. In HTML, I was commenting using something like this. But in CSS, I'm commenting using something like this. So in CSS, wait. Cool. So if you can see over here, I've used a slash star CSS, that is my comment name, and star and slash again. So I've opened the comment and closed it. CSS uses this for comments and HTML uses this for comments. I'm going to comment this, otherwise it'll give an error. Cool. So as soon as I commented my ID color, it again became blue. Let me uncomment this. It again became purple. So that's one thing about classes and IDs. Now that's about it for external CSS. Now coming to internal CSS, that is the style tag inside the head tag. Over here, I'm going to use the same thing. Let's start with, let's comment ID color. I'm going to use just class color over here. So right now it's blue in color because both places it says blue. Now, if I'm going to change this to red, it will automatically become red. Why did this happen? I've used class color blue over here and I've used class color red over here. Yes, so the reason I told you to use external CSS was, again, it can be overwritten by internal CSS. So the same way how IDs rewrite classes, internal CSS rewrites external CSS. Now that you've done this, it's rewritten my blue color to red color. So again, this works in a similar way how IDs do those classes, internal to external. But then there's one more thing, style attribute. This is the highest priority CSS you can have. I'm just going to use black over here. It became black. So to sum it up, as you may have noticed, external is less than internal is less than inline. So always refrain from using inline because whatever you write here will overwrite everything you wrote in your CSS files as well. If it's very necessary and you're not able to find which class is giving an error or not doing what you wanted to do, then you use inline. Similarly, try with classes. If your classes do not give you the output you expect, then you go to IDs. You can use class IDs for one more reason, for your JavaScript files. Just a second. Let's see if there are any questions. Not yet. Cool. So I'll move ahead. If you have any questions, keep dropping them in the comments. I'll keep checking them out. Okay, so I'm going to comment this out again. So, okay. Now we have explored the basics of HTML, the basics of CSS, but CSS is not yet done. CSS is huge. Before that, I'd like to teach something called forms in HTML. Wait, I guess it may be confusing seeing green everywhere. So I'll just move down. start forms. Okay. Like tables, HTML also has a form attribute. Suppose you have a contact page and you want people to reach out to you or something like that, you use something called forms. So you use input types, you literally type input type equal to, and you get different options: button, checkbox, color, date time, email, file, anything. So for now, I'm going to type text and just leave it at that and see what happens. Okay, so now I have input text like this. Great. So wait, let me just, it's too small, so I'll zoom in. This is my input type text. I can type any text over here. Now I'll show you different types of inputs. As you can see, I just type input type, it automatically gives me everything. So I'm going to try everything one by one. Input type color. So it's letting me choose any color I want. This is really useful when you want to make, if you want to change your page's color according to what is chosen, you can use this input type. You just put this input type, whatever the person types over here chooses, accordingly you can change the color of a background by taking this value through JavaScript. We'll go more into that in some time. But input type text, input type color. Now comes input type date. When you see websites, you must be thinking, how do they bring calendars and stuff? It looks so cool and all that, but that's just default HTML5 stuff. The developer did not really do a lot of hard work. It's very simple for them. You can choose any here. You can do this. You can do that. That's it. You don't need to write real code to make a calendar. You just put input type date and it gives you the exact date you can choose over here. So I'll show you a few more cool examples. Input type password. It automatically started up whatever was supposed to be there. Cool. Now I'm going to show try to move to the next line. How do I move my inputs to the next line? This is all in the same line. I want my next input to be on the next line. So this is usually bad practice, but just to show you how it works, I'm going to do this. Cool. So as you can see, my circle has come down. My radio button has come down. What is a radio button again? So a radio button can be used for different things like finding out if the person is male or female, gender. Let's go with gender only. Female, name. I'm just going to copy paste this because it's easier. Male. So as you can see on the next line, I have female and male radio buttons which I can choose, and I'm able to choose only one right now. How is this possible? You may have noticed I used something new. I used a name tag and a value tag. A name tag over here is used to say that this falls under the same group of radio buttons. So I'm trying to find the gender through these radio buttons. Only one of them should be clickable. If I change the name to something different, like if I change this itself to female and this itself to male, I'll be able to select both, which is not what I want. I'm not able to unselect anything as well. So that's why when you use radio buttons, that is when you want to give someone a choice, even for MCQs, quizzes, etc., you use these. So you use the same name. That's cool. So this is a very good example of forms. Now moving forward, that's not just it. Now there's something very important called input type equal to checkbox. Food. Let's give the name food and I'll ask what are their favorite things to eat. Pizza. Cool. So if you can see now, I've written input type checkbox, and it's given me this where I can select multiple items. I can deselect them, and it looks pretty cool like that. So I can choose what I want to be displayed. So even though it has the same name, this name over here in checkbox has only been used to group them for the same thing. But right now a checkbox allows me to use multiple things. I can select multiple items. Hmm. But now that you have a form, you have different things you have inputted. How are you gonna uh, submit it to the backend, or how are you going to collect the information? So you're going to use a button tag, and you're going to write button submit. That's it. You can see there's a submit button which came up. So usually it's not necessary that all these input fields, all these buttons look the same on all browsers. Safari has a different default. Chrome has a different default. Opera has a different default. Internet Explorer has a different default. Chrome usually looks good and is awesome for development. So I usually use this, and it looks pretty decent without any styling as well. So that's there. Now I'm going to add something, input type equal to submit. There are two types of buttons. They can be submit buttons or just a button. Okay, so just a button is usually not, it's usually used when you need to create a button which is not a part of a form. For example, there's this download CV section of mine. It is not linked to a form. It just hrefs to my resume. So this is not a part of a form, but it is still a button. So in that case, I use a button type button. Otherwise, I use something called button type submit. Now when I click on submit, and let's say something is empty, it submits and refreshes the page. Okay. If you can see, keep checking this place out, the refresh button. It became X and it became refresh again. So every time you click on submit, button type submit, it refreshes it. Your form, but as you noticed, I tried to make it empty and I submitted it. Your form should not technically log in or something without your credentials, right? It cannot be empty. So this is where you use something called a required tag. Okay. You use a required tag. Now I'm just going to remove this. And I'm going to click on submit. As you can see, I'm getting a default thing by HTML that please fill this field. This cannot be empty. I'll just zoom in, sorry. It says please fill this field. So I didn't need to write any specific code for this. HTML5 automatically gave me an error just because I wrote required over here. Required is another attribute. Earlier it used to be required equal to required, like any other attribute, but HTML5 is smart and it has reduced our work. We just need to write required. That's it. You write required, it becomes necessary, and your form won't submit. This is only possible because of this form tag. Okay, so I hope you guys got an idea of different form inputs you can use. You can use this. You have email input type email. You have input type password. You have input type URL only for accepting website links, etc. So you can use a lot of these stuff for different reasons. It's not necessary you use these only as forms. As I mentioned, you can use a button for other things like hrefing it somewhere, etc. Cool. So we are done with forms as well. Do you guys have any doubts? I'll wait for 2 minutes. In case you have doubts, I'll answer them right now. Then we'll move on to a few more basic concepts of CSS, then move on to JavaScript.
Okay. So I'm assuming there are no doubts. Everyone's understood everything perfectly. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask me. Don't be hesitant. Cool. So I've commented everything and now my screen is empty once again. Wait, let me just bring back my hair over it. This is going to be content. Now I will show you different things you can do using CSS. Now, okay, I've used a paragraph tag over here and I've written hello code. It's being displayed over here, but it's on my left corner all the time. I want to be in the center, for instance. What do I do now? Instead I use Laravel over here and it will be on the same page. I'm not using external, just to demo to you. Text, align, center. Text align center made it come to the center of my screen. So text align center is a CSS property. So it centers my text. I can also make it right, text align right. So it came to my right. I can also have text align left. So text align left, text align right, and text align center. These are three things to play around with your text. So I'll keep it in center. Okay. But now it's again too much in the top. I want it to be a bit below. So now you're going to use something called vertical align middle. Okay, so there's a reason why vertical align middle did not work over here. HTML uses something called divs. All your code is supposed to be inside divs. So once you have these divs, you assign a particular CSS class to this um, div class, and you assign stuff to this. So I'm going to use div class over here. Divs don't necessarily do anything by themselves, they just contain all of your code. It's like your body tag has everything inside, right? Your div has a smaller part of that inside. Cool. So I'm going to use div class, and now I can use this div class and modify different stuff. For example, now I'm going to use margin top 30 pixels. I'll just show you what margin top does. It sends it down like this. I'll make it 130 so it's even more visible. It came very down compared to what it was before. It's almost in the center of my screen. I can play around with it and now it's totally in the center of my screen. Maybe a little like that, 145 should do. Yep, now it's in the center of my screen, plus both ways. It's vertically in the center as well as from left and right. You can do this using different ways, but this is a very simple method to do it. Text align center and then margin top. Okay, so now CSS has a box system where you can put everything inside a box. Your whole screen is thought to be a box. Okay, now I'm going to give you a small example so you can understand this better. Okay, so one more thing. I'm going to add a tile border just so you can understand what is happening. Border 2 pixels solid green, and I'm going to add a background color pink. As you can see over here, I added a border 2 pixels solid green, and it gave me a green color border over here, and I added a background color pink so it became pink. Now I can also make my border dashed and it becomes like this, but okay, this is kind of annoying. I don't personally prefer it. So I don't usually use it on my websites. I use solid, which gives a proper border. But again, it is squared, right? I'm going to make it even cooler. I'm going to use border radius 10 pixels. What does border radius do is it made my thing curvy. As you can see, the borders are now curvy and look much better than what it was before. Okay. So if you now you can see that this is something very cool which was done using inline CSS. I usually use external CSS, but since I want to show it on the same page, I'm using internal and inline. Background color adds background, border radius adds the curve, border adds the line over here outside. Cool. You can use a color and change the color of this, but let's leave it right now since it's visible. Now I'm going to show you something called padding. I'm going to add padding to 50 pixels just to make it obvious to my text. If you notice carefully, I've added the background color, etc. to my div, but I'm adding a padding to my paragraph. It automatically became much bigger. So this made it bigger like this. Now what if I add a margin? I used a margin top before as well, right? So what does a margin do? Margin did the same thing, but then what's the difference whether if I use a margin or a padding? So padding clears the around area around your content, whereas margin clears the area outside the border. So right now I added padding over here to this as well, margin to this as well. That's why it added something to a transparent thing. There's no border over here. I'll add a border and it will become more obvious. Border 1 pixels solid black. Okay, so now it'll be very obvious. I used a margin, so there's space between this border and this border, the paragraphs border and the divs border. Okay, now I'm going to use padding again. As you can see, it gave me space inside the internal border. Before, when I used margin, it was space between this border and that border. Now it is space between the content and the internal border. So what this did was padding created area around the content, that is around this, and it gave me space between this border. And if I used a margin, it gave spaces between the outer borders. This is very important. Just to move it down, even padding top would have worked because again there is no real okay. Padding top moved it down, but there's a background color, so it was like that. The content is still down. So that's why I used the margin. Did everyone understand this? If you understood this, we'll move on with the box model of CSS. It's not a very big topic and it's very simple to understand. Okay, so this was the box model. The padding margin, these consist of the box model. But what do you do in case you want to put things on different portions of the screen? Say I want something to be only over here all the time, even if there's a lot of text, but there's something which should always be on top. For example, I'll show you a website. Cool. So right now, if you see that the footer is always at the bottom, it does not move. It will always be at the bottom of the screen. So how do I do that? I'm going to use something called position. So let me just remove the margin top. and the paddings. I'm removing the CSS as a whole for now. I'll just leave the background colors. Yep. So right now it's again back to normal, but now I want this to be at the bottom of my screen. So now I'm going to use something called, I'm going to use it for the div class only, position absolute. Let's see what this did. It just made it like this, but that's not what I want, right? Position absolute. Now I'm going to make it bottom 0. So okay, it's finally come to the bottom, but it was covering the whole screen before. Why is it covering a small part of the screen? Because you need to use something called width 100%, back to normal. So what position absolute did was it fixed the element to the bottom of the screen because I used bottom like this. You can also use left, say 30 pixels. Let's see, it moved away from the left side by 30 pixels. So that's how position absolute works. But position absolute, what it'll do is it won't stay sticky like this throughout. It will just be like this when you open the screen, and it will vanish once once you scroll down. Okay. So once you scroll down, this thing will vanish. It won't stay sticky. How do you get it to stick? You use something called position fixed. This will always be at the bottom of the screen, irrespective of what is there on the rest of the screen. This is always going to be fixed. So position absolute and fixed. Now I'll give you a small example. Okay, so this is going to be absolute. I'm going to make this top 0, left 30 pixels, and with 100%. Okay. Now I want to make something relative to this. Position absolute always comes with something called position relative. To make something relative to what was absolute. So I've done nothing. I just created a new, I copy pasted this and I created a class 2 instead of class. Okay, everything is the same and I just named it 2.0 to make it different. I'm going to copy the same CSS as well and I'm going to just make it relative. Remove, I'll comment everything. So let's see how it looks without these things. I hope you guys remember how to comment stuff in CSS. So now that I made it relative, it just stuck to this. Now let's try removing the top. Nothing because it's 0. Let's try 20 pixels. Harsh. 8 pixels. So it went inside. It went inside what was absolute, which is quite funny. But it's not always bad because when you need to use something like this, I prefer using examples. So I'm going to a lot of which I can explain to you. If you will contact me at the end as well. See, I have a shell analysis. I wanted things to come outside because this was the design given by the designer. So in such a case, position absolute and relative came into play, where I was able to put it half over here and half outside. I'm a bit outside. So that's the use of position absolute and relative. I can bring something outside, inside, etc. I can make it relative with respect to the other thing. Cool. So that has cleared out a major portion of our CSS as well. So now I hope you guys are okay. What do you want me to tell again, Pushpak Pavan? Pushpak, could you send a text as to what you would like me to repeat again? Okay, so I'll just give you a brief overview of what we did for HTML and CSS. We went through headings H1, H2, H3, H4, H5. H1 is the biggest, H6 is the smallest. Paragraph tags are about H4 size, but you can alter that as well using CSS. Then we went through anchor tags. Anchor tags, I'll just remove all the comments. Anchor tags are used to make links which are clickable. They redirect you to different places. Yep, I've removed all comments. Cool. So now we have a lot of stuff over here. After anchor tags, we went through tables. Tables basically show us different data in a more organized manner. Then when you want to show something in terms of categories, you can use lists. Lists usually come as ordered as well as unordered lists. Unordered list comes as dots, squares, circles, anything. And ordered lists can come as 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, capital A, capital B, capital C, Roman numerals, anything like that. Then you come to form. In form, we explored different input types and buttons and what are the uses. Then we went to CSS. CSS is of three types: external CSS, internal CSS, and inline CSS. Um, External CSS has the lowest priority, followed by internal, followed by inline. That's why it's always preferred to use external, then internal, then inline. Inline should be the last choice. Then we explored the concept of classes and IDs. Classes again follow a similar pattern. Classes have a lower preference than IDs, and IDs can override them. That's why classes are used more. Then we explored a lot of CSS properties like border, background color, border radius, padding, margin bottom, margin top, margin right, margin, text align, width. Then we went to the box model and saw position, absolute, relative, fixed, how they work, etc. Okay, so Pushpak wants me to explain inline CSS. Inline CSS is basically something which we write when we want to override the internal or external CSS. Okay, so over here I've used inline CSS because just a second, I'll zoom out so you can see more. Huh. Um, I just wanted to add borders, background colors, and border radiuses. So to the particular division. So I used these things as inline CSS. You could have used them over here as well, wouldn't have made a difference. I just wanted to make it in one place so you can see it at the same time. In here, I had also showed margins. So margin gave me a space between this and that. Now we can also explore padding. It gave me a space between this border and that. So to repeat, what padding does is, as I added padding here, it gave me a space between the inside, between the content and the border outside. And when I use margin, it gave me space with the border outside and whatever was outside. So margin works outside your whole division, padding works inside your whole division. Padding adds space inside your border, margin gives space between different things outside your main border. Okay. So that's what I use inline CSS for. If you have any other doubts, you can ask them. Otherwise, let's move on to the basics of JavaScript. So just like CSS, JavaScript also has internal, external, as well as inline. Inline is rarely used, like almost never used in JavaScript. but you use external a lot, and sometimes you use internal JavaScript as well. So if you remember, to write inline internal CSS, we use style tags. To write internal JavaScript, we use a script tag. JavaScript, CSS is cascading style sheet, so style. JavaScript is a script, so script tag. Okay. Over here, you can write any C++ code or anything like that in the JavaScript format, of course. But here you can write the logic. You use this and run it to the backend as well. You use JavaScript to the backend as well. So this is an example. Anything over here will be an example of internal JavaScript. So this direct is an example of internal JavaScript. I can also create a new file, index.js. So as you can see, JavaScript has another icon over here. You remember I linked CSS like this. To link external JavaScript files also, you need to do something called script src equal to index.js. That's it. Earlier you had to write type equal to text slash JavaScript and everything, but HTML5 understands it by default it is JavaScript, and you just need to write script src with the name of the JavaScript file. Cool. And the reason I used index.html, index.css, index.js is because it's standard convention. Everyone uses index.html as the main page, and even when you're deploying your website, index.html is considered to be the home page. Okay, so now I'll give you a small overview of JavaScript real quick, since we're running out of time. JavaScript comments are written like this, just like your C++ comments. You can write each line like this, or you can use the normal comments. That's how you write JavaScript comments. JavaScript